Hello there, welcome to the show. I'm Nicholas James, and you know what? Our star of the day is our special guest, Matt, the Man Windle. He's Birmingham's hashtag Poeted Punch. You know what? He does all sorts. He's poet by day, he's boxer by night, and he's a previous Young Poet Laureate. You know what? He's been in the top 6 nationally as a professional boxer, and he's going to be involved in Solihull's Book Fest in March. We're going to chat about all sorts today, from poetry to boxing to just everything going on today. So, Matt, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Nick. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Don't you get a bit tired out, though? You're a poet in the day, boxer at night. Is it not just proper full-on for you?
Yeah, I do get tired, to be fair, and I get a bit grumpy as well, because I don't eat very much when I'm trying to make weight for my fight, so I get a bit grumpy, but my family put up with me, so it's all right.
It's a good job. I mean, I must admit, you're sporting a very, very good beard and moustache. Have you already had this? You were sort of waxed.
Thespian. I use Pritt Stick.
No way.
Yeah, honestly,
Serious?
Yeah, I use Pritt. That's my little secret. It's out there.
Do you like going around? Do you go into a boxing bout trying to look like a villain? Is that what you're trying to do?
I do the moustache, but it lasts for about a round or so before the sweat makes me look like a walrus.
You got Pritt Stick slowly pouring down your face.
It. Well, gotta try.
So, which do you prefer? The boxing or the poetry? What is it?
I get asked that fairly frequently when I do my school visits and I've got assemblies.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that these children ask me. I love them both equally, because they're both so completely different as well. Of course, there are similarities to them, but they're so drastically different from what I'm doing day to day that I don't really have a major preference. I love being able to do both. I love the fact that I can go to the schools during the daytime and work predominantly with children. I probably like boxing as a sport more than I enjoy just sitting and reading poetry as an art form. But I love working with children and trying to inspire young people equally as much as I love getting into the ring and having a bit of a tear up.
I guess they're very different feelings, aren't they? They sort of, you get this different... you sort of get this different sort of satisfaction about it, I suppose.
Yeah, because the boxing is a satisfaction. It's all about you. You know, it's a place you and another man. You have your fight in a controlled environment and all the rest of it, and that is all about you. Yeah. Whereas when I'm doing my workshops, that's not about me at all. That's all about the children, and I'm just the person that's trying to bring the best and the inspiration out of the young people that I'm working with. So they're two completely different buzzes. One's a buzz because I've managed to give somebody else confidence and make them feel really good, and the other one's a personal buzz because it's, like I said, that's about me.
I'm very curious about your childhood. Let's start from the beginning. This is like Piers Morgan life stories. Where are you from? Whereabouts?
From Northfield in Birmingham. South Birmingham way. Yeah. So just grew up just normal sort of working class, hard working family.
Yeah. So I'm curious how boxing and poetry came together. I mean, which came first?
If I really drag it back, poetry kind of came first, but it was something that we had to do at school as well. So, but I went from doing neither to doing both within about a 9 or a 10 month period. So when I was in year 10, so about 15-ish, I started boxing in the January. I went to the gym for the first time in the January. I then wrote my first, what I considered to be a poem, in the May. Did my first poetry performance in the August, and had my first amateur boxing fight in the very first week of October. So in 10 months, I went from doing neither to doing both.
Wow. Okay, so that was properly full on. Did you have any particular heroes on either side as you were growing up?
I'm a bit strange. Like I've never been one that's been too crazy about
I'd never think that
posters on posters on the wall of other people. When I was a kid, I used to practice my autograph. So rather than chasing other people around for their autograph, I used to practice I've got like notepads that are just full from when I was like 7, 8, 9 years of age, just practicing my autograph and stuff. So I've never been one that's really looked up to famous people and thought I want to be like them. I don't know if it's because I feel as though they're a bit out of reach and I don't know them. I suppose a little cheesy or cliche or whatever, but my heroes are my family and my parents, and they work, ridiculously hard, and I've got very, very little to show for the amount of years that they've been working for, and just they're more, heroes, but the inspiration from trying to have a good work ethic and everything as well.
So does that mean you're quite as a performer or as a boxer or as a sportsman, you must be quite unique, I guess. You formed your own identity as opposed to being somebody who's looked up and tried to almost emulate somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I do a performance, people always come up to me and say, "You remind me of so and so," because just as humans, we always look for who someone reminds us of. You're the next so and so, or someone will sing on a music show, won't they? And I go, "Oh, they sound like the next Ed Sheeran." We're always looking for the next someone rather than the first someone. You're always looking for the next one. So people do make comparisons with other people that I remind them of. But yeah, I don't necessarily try and base myself on a particular person. I just do the things that I enjoy and that I like and that feels right for me.
Let's sort of just dig down a little bit and let's explore the boxing side if we can. Tell me a little bit about your career to date. What's your highlight of it? Would you say the top pinnacle moment?
And I had 65 fights as an amateur, and then I turned professional. I've got a fight coming up on the 15th of March for the Midland title, so that will be my biggest fight so far. It's over a 10-round distance, 10 3-minute rounds, so half an hour. I don't know, some people may not sound long, but half an hour of fighting is a mighty long time. That will by far be the biggest fight that I've taken part in, but I've boxed at the Echo Arena in the quarterfinals of the ABAs, so that was a huge deal for me. Back when I was an amateur, that's the biggest competition.
What's the primary difference between amateur boxing and professional boxing? I'm not a massive...
The top end of amateur boxing is over 3 3-minute rounds, so it can be less than that. It could be 3 2-minute rounds and stuff when you're a novice, but the top end, the Olympic boxing, that's over 3 3-minute rounds, whereas the biggest difference then with the professionals, like my next fight, is over 10 3-minute rounds. So it's not always, people think sometimes that if you're a professional boxer you're more skillful than an amateur boxer, and that very often isn't the case. Top amateur boxers are as good, if not better, than many professionals that are out there. It's more the duration of the contest.
So it's stamina based.
Yeah. It's a lot more about. It's less about talent and more about fitness. Whereas in amateur boxing, if you've got the talent, you can kind of blag your way through three rounds, almost like a clever kid at school not revising for their exams.
Right.
But then by the time they get to university and they're trying to pass, a 5-year degree or something, they're going to have to revise and
so
study.
Is that, if someone goes from amateur to professional, that's what catches them out?
Yeah, very often it's that work ethic where they've been so used to just getting by on talent. It's hard then to try and flip a switch and go, oh, all of a sudden now I'm going to work hard, even though that's what I haven't necessarily done that for the past 10 years. Now I'm just going to start really working hard. It's hard to do that.
Is that what makes it professional? You have to spend so much more time preparing and training, whereas you might have had a day job before and you couldn't do that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of professionals do have day jobs anyways, I mean, myself included, but there are more professional boxers with day jobs than not. It's something like 5% of professional boxers worldwide make enough money to live on. So there's not really money in boxing, so a lot of us we train before work, we say go for a run or whatever before work, then do a full day at work and then go straight from work to the gym and do our session at the gym or work, and we'll train kind of 10 times a week, as well as working.
Okay, and so I've read some notes about you. I understand that you were a torchbearer for the 2012 Olympics.
Yeah,
is that so?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I was nominated to carry that for the work that I've done within schools and with young people, and trying to help inspire people in the local community and so on and so forth. So there was 88,000 people nominated, and you had a 1 in 11 chance of getting it. And unfortunately, I was one of the ones in the 11. So I was selected to carry the Olympic torch. So I carried it just by Robin Hood Island is where
Really?
yeah. So that's where I did my stretch, and that was a really bizarre day, because I've had a few days where in the poetry thing you've kind of got to see how the other side live for a day, and I've had chauffeurs in Mercedes and Jaguars pick me up from stations and stuff like that, and I've had really nice days and stopped in nice hotels and that sort of stuff. But the 2012 was a day you really kind of got to experience what it's like for a celebrity day in, day out.
So were there big crowds along that side of the road?
Huge. It was ridiculous, because I was carrying it. I think it was something like 6:30 in the morning. It was very early anyway, of a Sunday morning. So me and my parents were a little bit disappointed at the time, because we thought, there's not going to be that many people out. And from about 5 a.m, Birmingham city centre around the council house was just filled with crowds of people, and then all along the stretch it was a great community gathering. Some of the problems that we have going on at the moment, everyone was out. People were out with sweets and food and food from their culture, and everyone just sharing and embracing and being together. And hopefully that's what the Commonwealth Games will do for Birmingham as well.
Yeah, that's a big thing coming up. Are you gonna get involved in that in some way?
I'd like to. I mean, if I can shoehorn my way into it, I think it makes perfect sense.
You've committed yourself on radio now.
I'd love to write a piece for it, because of course, being a poet, I was also the Poet Laureate of Birmingham. So I've been the Young Poet Laureate, but I was the Poet Laureate of Birmingham as well. So being the Poet Laureate of Birmingham for 16 to 18, and then the professional sports side of things as well, for me, it makes sense that I'd be involved in it somehow. So that'd be really nice. Yeah.
I'll touch on the poetry in just a minute. We'll save that thought.
Yeah.
I mean, what's curious to me is the fact that you were the Birmingham Midland champion in 3 weight categories.
Yeah, but
how on earth does that work?
Well, I was going down the weights, which is the funny thing. Usually what happens is with boxers is they start to get older, or they start to grow, or whatever, they go up through the weight divisions. But when I first started boxing, I didn't really know or understand weight divisions or what it should be. So I was fighting at featherweight. I mean, I fought even above that, but I was boxing lads at featherweight, which is around the 9 stone mark.
Yeah.
And then you started to see the size difference between me and some of my opponents, and I was saying, well, if they're featherweights, then I can't be a featherweight. And then you start sparring other lads, and you see other lads in other weights, and you start to read, actually, I should be and then we moved down to bantamweight.
Right.
And then I started making the bantamweight limit really easy. So it was like, actually, I'm a flyweight. So then we went from featherweight to bantamweight to flyweight, and
So what are you boxing at now?
Flyweight. My next fight, so that'll be 8 stone dead. So
you have to keep on that, do you? Is that the
no?
limit?
You have to get to it. So yeah, it's something that can be difficult for all boxers. Making weight is one of the things that they hate the most. Professional boxers have to sell their own tickets for the fight, and of course everyone you've got to make weight. They're the 2 biggest thing that if you ask any professional boxer, what do you hate about being a boxer? It's selling the tickets and making the weight.
So how do you make that weight then?
You just eat healthy, but smaller, healthier portions. So it might be, I don't know, porridge, and then a couple of boiled eggs and some brown toast, and then maybe an apple or some blueberries before your second training session, and then after your training session you have chicken and vegetables, and that's
so it's
it
just
for
good eating, isn't it?
3 months, and but I feel like I'm a fat man trapped in a little man's body, so giving up food is really difficult for me.
Yeah. So do you still work? Do you work with young people now on with your boxing? What do you do for them? So
it largely depends on what the school wants. So I do senior school visits, primary school visits, infants as well, but they're a little less. Primary and infants mainly, and just try and encourage them to write and to put pen to paper, and it can be a daunting task for a lot of people. They think either their handwriting isn't very neat, or their spelling isn't very good, or we talk about writing poetry, and although all poetry doesn't have to rhyme, and a lot of people's mind instantly turns to rhyming. Like, I'm not very good at rhyming, so there are a lot of barriers that they put in front of themselves when it comes to writing, and especially writing poetry. And I just try and give them the confidence and show them little tricks of the trade, really.
Yeah.
So if they're struggling to rhyme with a word, how they can rhyme with the word, ways to make it easier for them.
Have you ever found that there's been a conflict between being a poet and a boxer? There's sometimes, especially being a lad, has there been any sort of teasing, or have people accepted it? Or?
No, I think people ask me that quite a bit, and people, especially when I was young poet laureate, and I was first getting into it, and I was sort of 17, 18, people were like, what your friends said about it? What do people in the boxing community think about it? And they love it, and more people from the boxing community have come to support me at poetry events than people from the poetry community have ever come to support me at boxing events.
That's funny.
And people may say, I don't like boxing, or I don't agree with it, or whatever, but if you're asking them if they're going to come to a fight, you're not asking them if they like boxing. You're asking them to come and support you. I'm sure a lot of boxers don't, inverted commas, like poetry, but they come to the poetry event to support me and to watch it and to see it. So, no, and you'd actually be surprised how many people within the boxing world, it's coaches or, I don't know, retired boxers now, whatever it may be, they'll go to me and go, I actually write a bit of poetry. Could I send you some of my stuff? And so it's more of a, they're not secret writers as such, but of course you wouldn't just randomly turn up to the gym and someone say, what you've been doing today? I've been writing a poem. Like, it's just not something you'd really say, but when they know someone is a poet, they open up and they talk about the fact that they write poetry as well.
So if you were describing yourself as a poet, is there a particular style?
And the genre, I guess it comes under is spoken word, which means it's meant to be listened to more than read out of the pages of a book, although it certainly can be read as well. But yeah, it's meant to be heard more so, which is why when I'm doing my workshops and the young people are writing, it doesn't matter too much how it looks on the sheet of paper, because it's about the performance, and as long as they can read the word that they can't necessarily spell, or they can say the word that they can't necessarily spell. It doesn't matter if you can't spell it, because you can say it, and we're doing spoken word. So it's meant to be listened to and enjoyed and read out loud, rather than just read by someone in a classroom or something.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's no one necessarily compare myself with or anything.
Are you always writing little poems in your head, or is there something specifically that you have to go and see to inspire you to write, or you might be walking down the street and see something there, and then suddenly some words come into your mind? How does the writing process work for you?
Yes, it's a bit of both. I certainly go to sleep most nights thinking about either little storylines or ideas or things that I have just manifesting away in the back of my brain. So I think about stuff like that. There can be times where you're just walking down the street and you see a little something, and a poem or the opening line is either fall out of your mouth, or you make a bit of a mental note and say, I should write a poem about that, and it's something that's gone to the back of your mind for another time. I feel as though I'll be more efficient, I guess, and prolific as a writer when I'm not boxing, because then rather than having to get up and train and then rest in between, and then because I'm going training again in the evening or whatever, when I'm not boxing anymore, I can kind of just write. So any days that I'm not visiting a school or returning emails and all that side of things, you can just write more. So I think the best of my writing is probably and hopefully yet to come.
Do you think that poetry is a dying art, or is it still beating strong? Sometimes a lot of people go, "Ooh, not sure about poetry." As you say, I can't rhyme. Yeah. Is it something that's on the up, or the same, or just sort of?
I think at the moment it's massively on the up. The poetry community in Birmingham is huge. I don't even necessarily consider myself part of that community now. I don't know sort of 90+% of the people involved with poetry in Birmingham anymore. It's massive. I mean, when I first got into it, there was my mentor, Dreadlock Alien, and his partner at the time called Spoz, and those two kind of were the Birmingham poetry community. Then there's one or two other people that they had involved, and then I started to get involved with them, and Now there's myself and another guy called Curly and that work with Dreadlock Alien as well. And yeah, there's so much going on now. There's an open mic night, I think, virtually every night in Birmingham.
Is that the best way to get some poetry? See it performed at an open mic night or something like that? Or do you listen to something, or do you buy a book? What's the best way?
I suppose it depends. I mean, if you're an avid reader and you love reading anyway, then books, of course, are always good. But I think once you have a certain voice and a voice in your head and an ear for it, you read it better,
right? Because
you can imagine how either you'd perform it or how someone may perform it, rather than just reading it kind of line for line.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, going to open mic nights are massively helpful, I think, for people that are a little bit dubious of poetry, because they'll see something there that they really enjoy. I always say to people that come to poetry nights with me for the first time, I'll be like, look, because I feel like I'm pretty honest and I'm pretty blunt and straightforward. I said, look, there'll be some people that share some work tonight, and you'll think to yourself, why has Matt brought me to this? Why am I here? You know?
Right.
But I said there'll also be someone or people that you hear tonight that you go, oh my God, that's why Matt's brought me to this. And that one person that was good, if it is only one person, but that one person that was good will eclipse anything before it that was bad. And you'd definitely be up for going to another poetry night again, with the risk of having that bad to good ratio, but knowing that you're going to hear something good along the way. So it's definitely worth it. They're good nights out.
So tell me a little bit about your work as a young poet laureate and as the laureate for Birmingham. What did that entail?
So the young poet laureate, I get emails and messages sort of semi-frequently from people asking how I managed to do what I do for a living, because they'd love to do something similar. And I've replied with lengthy messages, but the first point of call is always the fact that I was the young poet laureate. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now as for a living full time, because that put me in front of schools. So it would be performances at the NEC, the NIA, Council House, ICC, Villa Ground, Blues Ground, wherever it may be, just big places in Birmingham. There may be like work experience days or something like that are happening. There could be 10, 20, 50 different schools there, and then they'll wedge me on in between the Lord Mayor and the Birmingham councillors' boring welcome speeches and stuff, and they'll just shoehorn me in for a little bit of a relief. And then the teachers will come up to me afterwards and go, our kids really like that. Our kids normally hate poetry. Do you come into schools? So then, of course, you exchange details. Before I knew it, after a 12-month period, I had a lengthy list of teaching contacts that I wouldn't have initially had. So then when I eventually registered self-employed, I emailed all of them. I'd been into most of their schools by that point anyway. So these are my rates now, this is what I'm doing, I'm going full time. If you'd like to book me in, please do. If you can't at the moment, but you would recommend me. Of course, teachers always know other teachers, so pass my details on. And it just snowballed and went on from there. So the Young Poet Laureate is the most important thing that's run by Birmingham Libraries. That's the most important thing for me doing what I do.
And I think you are the face of Birmingham Library, or one of them,
one of the faces.
Is it your poetry, or was it the moustache?
Yeah.
Which got you to that point?
It was the poetry, definitely, because the moustache wasn't existing then.
Oh, so, right.
It was definitely the poetry. But yeah, Birmingham Library were looking for people that they had helped and inspired, and people that they had an effect on, to represent the new library, and they were looking for local people and local faces. And Charlie Jordan, who was the adult poet laureate when I was the young poet laureate, she put me forward for that. And they splashed my ugly mug all up the side of a Broad Street, and that when they had those big boards, and now on the inside of the library and on the stairs by the children's library, they got my face up on there as well.
Well, that brings me to another big event that you're doing next month. You're doing something for the Solihull Book Fest, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, indeed.
So what is it you're going to be doing?
So I've got a couple of performances that I'll be doing, 20-minute performances for people. It's free of charge. That one people can just come along and listen to some poems that I'll be performing, and whatever else. I go with the flow and see who turns up. So depending on age range and whatever we've got, I might get a few of the kids up on stage and do a quick little boxercise session with them as well, whatever it may be. But yeah, it'll be a performance, it'll be a few giggles, interactive, get the audience involved with some of the stuff that I'm doing as well. And then wedged in between the two performances, I've got a workshop. So I think it often gets billed as a poetry workshop, but a creative writing workshop, whether they want to write poems, raps, songs, whatever they kind of want to dress it up as. Really, it's just making writing more fun for people. So if, as I've already mentioned, but if you feel like you're not good at spelling, or you're not good at reading, or it doesn't matter. I didn't do great at school at all. This is about showing you how it can be easier and get more fun from writing.
I've got a challenge for you then.
Yeah.
I've heard that you're pretty fast.
Ish.
I'm going to give you a 3-minute 53 song.
Okay.
Can you come up with something, no matter how small, about Solihull Radio?
Yeah, we'll go for it. Yeah.
Oh,
I
here we
get
go.
typing on my phone.
You get typing on your phone. You've even got fast thumbs. That's very impressive. Okay, so I'm going to play Bruno Mars, Locked Out of Heaven, and we're going to see in about 4 minutes what the poet with a punch has come up for us. Okay, here we go. This is Bruno Mars, Locked Out of Heaven, here on Solihull Radio.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Swimming in your water, something spiritual.
We are back here on Solihull Radio. We will see if Matt has come up with something amazing. How have you got on?
Well, I've come up with something. Oh, I don't know if it's amazing.
Oh, I think it's amazing to come up with all of us here. We're rushing around in 3.5 minutes. I think you're doing great. Let's see what you come up with. Here we go.
I have 3 minutes 53 to the sound of Bruno Mars to write a few lyrics and poetry bars, on the spot poems just for fun. You set me a challenge, now look what I've done. For stanzas and rhymes I've been racking my brains. You're listening to Matt Windle and Nicholas James. Solihull Radio is the place to be for a freestyle poem on the MIC. There's lots of great music you can listen to on your Google, Alexa or on iTunes. So sit back, relax and enjoy the show because you're listening to Solihull Radio.
Wow, that is phenomenal! What a genius! That is unbelievable. We need to record that. We so need to record that as a jingle or something like that. That is amazing. Matt, you've been a star. What's new for you? What are you doing for the rest of the day, the next couple of months? What's that bringing to you?
The next month or so is predominantly just training very hard for this upcoming fight that I've got. So a lot of training, workshops in schools, doing school visits, assemblies, workshops, getting young people writing. For me, it's never so much what's new. It's kind of keep doing what I'm doing. Obviously, we've got this Solihull Bookfest stuff coming up as well. So we've got the work there, which I'm really looking forward to. So more of the same.
So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you on. Just before we go, how do we get in touch with you if we want to book you to box with us or to do some poetry with us? How do we do that?
Social media is the easiest way to begin with, and then you can get email addresses and stuff off there. Website is poetrywithpunch.com, and all of my handles, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, are Matt Windle Poet. Windle is like swindle without the S.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'll catch you again soon.
You're listening to Solihull Radio.
Fields is one of the region's most respected law firms with more than 120 years' experience. Winners of the Chamber of Commerce Excellence in Professional Services Award and High Growth Business of the Year Award. We have over 150 experts working across 8 regional offices, all dedicated to finding you real solutions. Get to know us better at thursfields.co.uk.
Solihullradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Joan Smith and I'm passionate about helping businesses grow. I'm an impartial broker working with experts in all areas of business support. I can support your business through different areas, for example, grants, loans, apprenticeships or training or general business advice. Get in touch via gintro.co.uk. Thanks a million.
Parkview in Shirley is a stunning residential development of 27 two-bedroom apartments. Modern, stylish and luxurious, the exceptionally high-quality properties are centrally located and next to the popular high street, with plenty of bars, restaurants and shops, and an enviable view of Shirley Park. Parkview is an ideal home for first-time buyers, as it's supported by the Help to Buy scheme and requires just a 5% deposit. Created to exacting standards, the apartments have allocated parking and cycle storage. With prices starting at £190,000, Parkview is superb value for money. For more information and contact details, visit parkviewshirley.co.uk.
You're listening to Solihull Radio.